Hello. Today I'm going to show you a game between two Soviet masters. White is Itzhak Boleslavsky and black is Georgy Lisitsin. A few words about the players. Boleslavsky was a very strong grandmaster, played frequently in the Russian championship. He was the assistant of world champion Petrosyan in the 60s, and there are openings named on his name. There is a variation in the Sicilian opening that is named on his name, Boleslavsky opening, and he was a very strong grandmaster and a really good candidate against Botvinnik, but he didn't manage to win his match. On the black is Georgy Lisitsin, who was a Russian chess master from Leningrad, an expert on the Reti opening, and author of several chess books. So here is the game. E4, C5, the first move of the, sorry. E4, C5, the first move of the Sicilian opening. Knight F3, D6. D4, C takes, knight takes. Knight F6, Knight C3. This is a very standard opening that I myself play very often. G6. G6 is the standard move of the dragon opening. In the Sicilian, there are many variations, and the dragon is one of the most tactical and interesting variation. So after G6, white plays bishop E3, bishop G7, F3 to prevent knight to G4 and harassing the bishop. Black castles, white plays queen D2, knight C6, and the usual position of opposite castling appears on the board. In this standard opening, usually white will attack on the king's flank and blacks will try to attack on the queen's flank. This is the usual opening, and white is storming with G4, H4, H5, and so on. This happens many, many times. Here, black decided to relieve some of the tension by changing the knight. Knight takes, bishop takes, queen A5, king B1, E5. The bishop returns to E3. Notice the weakness in D6, which must be somehow solved eventually. Bishop E6, A3. Rook F D8. And now white has two main options. He can start the attack with the pawn on G4, but he chose to continue by knight B5. Already white is better. Now, black could take the queen. Queen takes queen, rook takes queen, D5, and free his position a bit, but he chose to keep the queen and go to A4. Actually, this is not a good move because white has a very, very good answer, but he missed it. White could play knight c7. Knight c7 is a very dangerous move for black. First of all, it attacks the rook. Secondly, if the rook comes to c8, bishop comes to b5 and the queen is trapped. You see that the queen has nowhere to go. But somehow white played c4. Still, white is better. Black answered by bishop takes c4, and you will see soon what is the idea of c4. This d5 square is a very important square strategically. If somehow the knight managed to come to d5, and both pieces, black pieces that protect the d5 square were eliminated by a magic touch, it would be a very good position for white. So white has to dispose of the bishop and the knight and put his knight on d5, and this would be very good for white because the black bishop on g7 is not doing anything, and both active pieces, the bishop and the knight, if he managed to exchange them, it would be very nice for him. So let's see. Bishop takes c4, wins the pawn. Knight come back to c3, threatening the queen. Queen comes to b3, and white takes the black bishop, so one piece is already eliminated. Now white goes to g5 with his bishop. The knight is pinned because if he moves, the rook will be taken, so white will gain the exchange. And queen e6. White takes the knight. Queen takes the knight, and white has achieved his idea of putting the knight on d5, eliminating both pieces. And look, it was only 5 moves from here. This was the position 5 moves ago when I told you ideally the knight will be here, both pieces eliminated, and now we are 5 moves forward, and this is exactly the position that white thought about. So in the price of 1 pawn, white eliminated the 2 black active pieces and put his knight on a very, very central and strong square, d5. Now he threatens the queen. Queen goes to h4. So now white has a mission how to limit the black queen's activity. So first move, white goes to e2 in order to arrive to f1 and protect this pawn and advance the g3 pawn. Why playing this way and not harassing the queen immediately? Because the queen has the h3 square and then she can go out. By moving to e2 and then to f1, the black queen will be denied of the h3 square. Okay. Black plays bishop f8, trying to do something with his bishop and protect the d6 pawn. And white continues, queen f1, threatening the h3 square after the pawn advances. Rook a to c8, and now g3. Of course, this square is impossible, so black goes to g5. Now, white goes h4. Why this move is very bad? Queen takes g3 pawn, because the reply of white would be rook h3 and the queen is trapped. You see, this square is defended by the knight. This square is defended by the pawn. He cannot take the pawn because of the rook. He cannot take the rook because of the queen. So the queen is trapped. So after h4, queen h6. Queen h6, g4. Continuing the attack of the pawns, trying to opening the files for white strong pieces, the rooks, the queen. So after g4, black answers g5. This is already almost a lost position. White takes the pawn, queen takes the pawn, and rook h5, threatening the queen. Black cannot move to in this diagonal because the squares are attacked by the knight. Cannot go to this because the squares are attacked by the knight. So his only move is queen g6. And now, amazingly, g5. Black cannot take the rook because of knight f6, forking the king and the queen. So black tries h6, but rook takes h6. Now, if bishop takes the rook, knight e7 forks the king and the queen. So after rook h6, black plays queen takes g5. And the last move is beautiful, rook h5, and black resigns. Why? Of course, if black takes the rook, knight f6 is again the fork, king and queen fork. If he doesn't take the rook, where could the queen go? Let's say here. White could go to f2 or h3 and threaten mate on h7, h8. Again, if the bishop tries to protect, there is always a fork on e7. Nothing to do anymore. If rook c5, rook h8, king g7, and rook h1, and eventually it will be the end. Rook g8. If king take, it's mate. If king goes to f6, queen h4. If king goes to e6, the queen is taken. Hopeless position. So in this position, after rook h5, black decided to resign. This was a very typical attack in the Sicilian dragon, beautifully orchestrated by Boleslavsky. I hope that you enjoyed the game, and see you in the next one.